I guess most of you are either research scholars or faculty members or both. So what I'm thinking is that since as a teacher or as a prospective teacher being a research scholar, your job would be to teach economics for quite a long time in your career. I thought one of the topic that could be for your interest is to how to make basic day-to-day observations into basic economic theory. And when we talk about day-to-day observations, it has to be micro theory, because when you go to a market and buy a bag full of vegetables, and in the very early economics career of all of us as a student, we know that we are being taught that if price of a commodity rises, then our demand falls, and vice versa. We have also learned the inverse demand curve, where on the contrary, quantity affects the price, etc., etc. So to this afternoon, what I'll be trying to do, that is to put in front of you some basic observations in economics in the field of, I have chosen two fields. The two fields are international trade in the first part of my lecture, and then environmental sector in the second part of my lecture. And how do, with simple observations of data, by data I mean you do not have to go to primary surveys, collect data, and then you observe and then you come to a conclusion. To make things more interesting and certain and also unquestionable, what I'll do this afternoon is to present in front of you some secondary data set. How do the data set be interpreted both as a layman and as a professional of economics or development team? What kind of conclusions could we draw from simply observing those things? And then, if possible, how do we kind of go on and theoretize or write some mathematical notations, mathematical forms of equations out of that observations by rationalizing the things that we'll be doing? Because the very first things that are taught as students of economics in our undergrad course is that we're all rational human beings. So even though the concept of rationality is highly debatable, what is rational for me might not be rational for you, but then still, as students or teachers of economics, there has to be a kind of a glass roof, which you take universally as the kind of barrier of being a rational or a non-rational thing. Now, before I start, I would be happy if you interact with me, because online classes are usually pretty boring, because I don't know whether you are hearing me or you are having your afternoon nap, or you are watching TV, or doing some texting or in WhatsApp. So if you interact with me, ask questions, seek clarifications, that would help me to understand that you are listening. Else I might fall asleep. So there are two ways to counter it. So I would request that there might be some things which might be, I hope, interesting to you. So you please raise those things, ask me questions, seek clarification, or try to interact, so that the lecture becomes more fruitful. So with that, let me present my screen to you. Is my screen viewable to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Great.
Yes, sir.
So this is our first phase, or rather first part of the lectures that I have planned for this afternoon. If you feel interested and I feel interested to carry on, I might go on introducing the other stuff as well. Krishna Tankar, are you seeking some clarification or any point you have?
No, sir. No problem.
Okay, so let me go on and introduce. So as you know, as you have already seen in your schedule, the topic is formation of micro-theoretic framework from empirical observations. Why have I chosen this topic? You know that as a researcher, I have also found that nowadays people, unless we usually love to do mathematical theorems, we find it bit kind of put your collar up kind of thing, that we are quote unquote good in mathematics, but that does not mean that papers are being easily published. Why I'm saying that? Because unless you have some theory, unless you have some mathematical observations of the models you are building, getting enough support from empirical stuffs, it might not be easily sellable. So having a concrete mathematical theorem and being supported by good empirical observations in the form of, nowadays, you know it better than me, there are several softwares that do take up these exercises and come up with several stylized results using either time series or cross section or a combination of both, or even taking a panel data. So that's the reason I felt interested in introducing it to the budding research groups like you, where I first present in front of you a few empirics, and then how to kind of come to some concrete theory out of that empirics. So let's continue with this scheme of presentation. So what we'll be trying to do, I will be showing you some international trade statistics over the years. How do the statistics behave over the years? We do it both for exports and imports. Seemingly, as a layman, not as an economist, what kind of conclusion can you draw out of that? Now, how do you justify that? And if the policies and the justifications, they match, they go hand in hand, how do we kind of blame or relate those behavior to various policy variables? So that's my first thing I'm thinking of introducing. So look, first data you have, these are the data. You might be a bit perplexed with the term misreporting, because let me first tell you the definition of what is meant by misreporting. Any misreporting, be it export or import, we define it in this way. Say, with the Indian, and among the about 20 of you, you have about 20 students doing this course. And these 20 of you, let's form a group of exporters, or rather 10 of you are exporters and 10 of you are importers. So out of these 10 exporters, you are exporting, you are producing the goods in India, and given that price differentials, we all know that trade takes place due to price differentials, and you are exporting a part of your production to abroad. So you are exporting, say, to a destination called the USA. So what is your export should be equivalent to US import. And export reaching from, say, from Bombay port to New York port or New Jersey port, it's a huge distance, so we have to take care of transport cost. We call it the cost of insurance and freight, because some of the cost might of becoming protecting the goods. If the good is perishable, then you have to take enough protection so that without reaching the shore in the US, it does not get spoiled. So you need some protection. We call it the cost of insurance to protect that. There might be accidents. There might be several other untoward incidents. You simply can't predict, but only hope it does not take place. So this is your kind of cost of insurance as well as freight. So your export reaches Mumbai port. From there, you have to take care of the cost of insurance and the freight that goes to US destination. And there in the New York or New Jersey port, it is getting collected. And the cost you get is the or the value of imports. So as per the IMF rule, we have to add a factor of 1.06, or to be very general, we multiply the value of exports with respect to 1.06 to get the value of imports that will reach US. So in that way, you can have an equivalence of Indian export by 10 of you to the US imports. Now, what should happen in theory? What we know up till our master's knowledge, you know that our export should be their import. If we export 10 million dollars of exports, there it will be equivalent amount of imports, and simply there is an adjustment factor of 0.06 factor to be added to it, or multiplication of 1.06. So other than this, other than 0.06 fraction of variation, there should not be any distinct differences in the value of the exports that we have from India and value of the imports that they receive in the US. But there is a big but in the sense that so far as the Indian trade data is concerned, be it export, be it import, they are not equal. They are not identical at all. And in your screen, you could see that what is this level of disidentity or the level of differences. In the top panel of your diagram, you see that this one, right, this data is right from 1960 to 2018. As we are running a project, we are gathering data even after that. And you see up till 1980, it was almost close to zero, but there after that, it was kind of uphill. It is about uphill. And then from 2010 onwards, it's kind of a downhill. So in no way this is close to zero axis. This is first very important observation that we make. What about imports? The same story goes, as I am continuing with your example, that if 10 of you are exporters and 10 of you are importers, so 10 of you who are not exporters are importing goods from US. Goods are being shipped from say New Jersey port and being delivered at new Mumbai port, and again their export is your import. You add this time 1.06 as a factor to US import, deduct it to get it. US export is equivalent to your import. So in that way, you can try to get an equalized value. But again, as we have seen in the case of exports, imports too, still hovering around zero. It's not zero. Either it goes up or goes down. Mostly it is underreported. with an exception of few. But the bottom line is that these are no truthful revelation. This is a very important thing. What the traders are doing, this is I want you to note, that they are not revealing their data truthfully. What could be reasons for this? That would be our first discussion for the day. How do we say none of us, none of the 22 or 20 individuals that we have in this kind of meeting right now, none of us do not have any idea, any bit of economics with us. We are a physicist, we could be a chemist, we could be a doctor, we could be engineer, but not an economist. So how do we read these things? That would be I firstly checking with you. This is the first thing to observe. Let's proceed with our next slides. What does it say? It talks about hidden portion of the GDP. How do you define GDP? You in your basic macroeconomics course, the GDP is equal to Y, which is your national income, equal to C plus I plus G in a closed economy, plus X minus M. So in an open economy, GDP equals consumption, investment, government expenditure, which are our own, plus export minus import. We call this export minus import thing as grossly a balance of trade thing or current account balance, right? You all know. So now, if either export or import or both are fabricated, both are falsified, how do you get a real gauge of your GDP? That's a very important and interesting questions we are dealing in our research agenda nowadays. We would see that how people rationally thriving by having a hole in the government exchequer, how people are continuously kind of misreporting, and in that way depleting our official resources and thriving on kind of black money or sending capital abroad, this kind of things. So to start with, we'll understand as of now, since we are now assuming up till the next 10-15 minutes that we do not have any knowledge of economics. So how do we read those data before we come to mechanizing these things into some mathematical formulation? So this is next very important slide that is in your screen, that's showing that this is the level of GDP which is being either hidden or not reported. How blatant violation of state policies are we doing by not reporting properly? We are making our country poorer and just being as thieves, being as burglars. What kind of burglary are we doing? We are just taking resources out of exports and imports as a corrupt trader, and in a way harming the interest of our country. This is another part that you will be introduced. I don't know to what extent I'll get time to formulate all those stuffs. These are unrecorded foreign investments. There are two kinds of foreign investments: FDI and FII, foreign direct investment and foreign institutional investments. Foreign direct investment comes with a huge responsibility of having a production setup, having production facilities where local employment are getting generated. So we'll always welcome FDI. and FII goes into the share and bond markets. And in this presentation of ours this afternoon, we'll be talking more in terms of foreign investment, and we'll show that if time permits, that how does money go away from trade account and comes back in the via the FDI account. And you see, these are the percentile changes in export and imports with respect to the percentile changes in the exchange rates. On the horizontal axis, you have exchange rates, and the vertical axis, you have change in the actual and official. Now you know what could be actual, what could be official. Official is what India is reporting. Actual is what we are getting from the US data. This is for import, this was for export, and this was for import, again with respect to changes exchange rates. This is the balance of trade thing. How do the balance of trade curves do both actually and officially? So let's stop here for the time being and try to gauge why these things are happening. Now put yourself as an exporter or importer. What kind of benefits could we have by not truthfully reporting the trade data? What could be the reasons? Anyone want to have a try that why an exporter or importer might not report their data truthfully?
Sir, avoiding the taxes.
Very good, Shujata. One reason is avoiding the taxes. Be
Sir,
it
import duty.
Right. So it could be export tax, it could be import duties. I absolutely agree with you that two of the taxes, be it export tax, be it import tax, we would be happy to evade taxes and save income. If there anything else, could we think of
Any kind of black marketing or something like that?
Very good. What kind of black market could you foresee here?
I mean, something that traders are not willing to show officially.
So basically, you mean to say perhaps the black market of currency?
Yes, sir.
Right. Very good. I'm really happy with the answers I have got so far. So let's start with these three things. So one is the tax, be it export tax, export income tax, be it import tax. We know it is called either import tariff or customs duty, or as Shujata was talking about, it could be the gray market or black market of foreign currencies. Let's start our discussion with this. So what are the black market of foreign currencies? Black market, now it is not there, but when we first started going abroad in early 2000s, then I know that after coming back, I had some US dollar left with me. And one of my friends who also used to frequent among different countries, he told me not to go to the Reserve Bank because I bought the money from the Reserve Bank. So I thought it is better because I've got about $200 or $300 left with me after coming back, and I'll not be going within 6 to 7 months. So I thought I should sell those currencies because I can't use the US dollar in Indian market. So what I did, I thought I was calling my friends. So when I will be visiting RBI Kolkata branch, so I will also be joining you. So I have about 300 dollars left with me. I could exchange it with Indian currency. He said, no, don't do that. This was my first foreign visit, and this was perhaps his third foreign visit. He told me, you just go to perhaps you. I don't know whether you have seen that or not. Where there is this great UBI, United Bank of India head office in the old Courthouse Street. and the opposite of it was the then called the Great Eastern Hotel. Just the opposite footpath of Great Eastern Hotel, people were selling and buying currencies. They
Yes, sir, I have
look
seen.
like, okay, Sujata, great. They look like, any street side burglars, perhaps coming from Topshia or Tiljola or, this Park Circus regions, and that's doing something look like the simple pickpocket. So I was very afraid, but they were so professional. Just by looking at me, they came. One of them came to me and said, "Oh, are you new in this street?" I said, "No, I'm not new, but so far as this selling and buying of currencies, yes, I am new." So he first offered me a cup of coffee. Actually I thought that coffee was also mixed with something so that they will rob me. But my friend was very seasoned. He was just staying about meters away and just instructing me what to do. And at those time, this cell phones have just come, so we could still talk over basic mobile phones. So he offered me a cup of coffee. Say, how many dollars do you have? I will give you, say at that time it was about what? About 50 rupees or something like that. When I was almost agreed to sell it with, say, about 52 or 53 rupees, another guy came very quickly. He said, "Sir, I'll give you 55 rupees." So you see that these are the black market. So how is the concept of black market I'm trying to make you understand to be developed? Is that in the official market, if you just go on to the newspaper or just check over the Googles, the today's exchange rate at this point of time is say 70.02 rupees per dollar, and in a gray market you are getting 72 rupees. So being a rational individual, where should I sell my currency? Should I sell at the RBI or should I sell at that street side with the street side hawkers? Where should I sell? Where you could have sold. So as Tanushree has said, I better be selling those currencies to the hawkers, because I gain 2 rupees at least for each dollar that I have. So if I had $300 at that time, so I get 600 rupees extra. And as a just joining lecturer, at those days it was called lecturer, not assistant professors. I was very happy actually that I finally did something good, finally did something which looks clever, because otherwise I still find myself to be a very law-abiding person. But I was really kind of cheering myself that, oh, this I really did something good for me by having 600 rupees extra. So think of, if that 600 petty rupees, or by selling $300 I get, what could have been for the exporters, which have thousands of dollars and euros and foreign currency. So that one reason exporters should not report properly. Now my second question to you: should I underreport or should I overreport? If, say, Tanushree is exporting $1,000 of $1,000 worth of organic seeds to the US market, should Tanushree declare $1,000? Option 1, $800 option 2, or $1,200 option 3. Which should Tanushree do to gain in the foreign exchange market?
$800.
Yes, Himadrija, I should be doing the option 2, which is $800, because by underreporting, I save $200. I go to the Old Courthouse Street in Kolkata, or the Grand Street in Mumbai, or this Chor Bazaar in, or this Palika Market underground in Delhi, to sell those, and as a result, I generate some kind of a premium. This is the reason exporters unreport it, or rather, to be very specific, underreport it. Very good understanding. I'm happy. Let us now take the story to the importers. The same story holds. The same black market is there. Same 2 rupee premium you get for each dollar. And now, say, Himadrija is an importer. Tanushree was exporting something. Himadrija is importing, say, some high quality computers for her research. Himadrija is importing, say, $10,000 of computer products out of US. Should Himadrija underreport or overreport her import basket to gain the this premium over dollar in the black market?
Sir, overreport.
Very good, Sujata. If Himadrija is asking for $10,000 of import, he would go to the Reserve Bank and say that, look, I have to import $15,000 of import. So please take this equivalent amount of home currency, give me $15,000 of foreign currency so that I can pay to my importer. And since she is actually paying $10,000, she is selling the rest of 5,000 in the black market like Tanushree did. And in that case, both the exporters and importers have gained simply by first Tanushree by underreporting and Himadrija by overreporting. This is one incentive that Sujata talked about, that black market premium might influence Tanushree's behavior, might influence Himadrija's behavior. But there is a big but, because I'll be taking you back to one slide which I've already shown to you. Here you see our imports too are underreported. If you just kind of for the time being ignore 2012 or 2006, our imports are underreported. So that means what Himadrija wants to do, and what Sujata has rightly said Himadrija must do, she is not doing that, even if there is a black market premium to gain. So is Himadrija irrational, or how do we justify Himadrija's behavior? That given that there are black market premium to gain, to grab in both hands, she is not doing that, and she is doing actually on the contrary. Tanushree's case is well understood, because as you could see in the diagram, exports are underreported. So Tanushree's behavior is well understood. What about Himadrija's behavior? Himadrija should overreport it, as Sujata has rightly said. But so far as our diagram, so far as our empirics are concerned, Himadrija is underreporting it. So what plays in her mind? How do I justify Himadrija's behavior, as Himadrija is not mad, she is absolutely rational? What could have changed her mind not to overreport but underreport?
Sir, she has to pay a higher import duty if she overreport. Maybe that's why.
Very good, Tanushree. That's the answer. So basically, there is a trade-off. Himadrija needs to choose whether she would be paying a high tax or high import tax on the basket she is importing, if there are very high amount of tax on computer imports or software imports, and the gain that she will make by selling that the overreported $500 worth of foreign exchange in black market, and that gain is less, Himadrija is intelligent enough to understand I better underreport. Because to me, evading import tax is much more attractive than selling the foreign currency at the black market. So these are, I am happy the way the class is responding. Acha, ebar ami, let me take a pause here and tell me if all of you are getting my points. If any of you have, because now I'll be getting into the building up of the theory. So if any of you has any problem so far in understanding the logic, because I am getting responses from some of you, but I am teaching all of you. So please let me know if you have any clarification, any queries sought. Just throw at me before I proceed.
Sir, the graph in unofficial trade as proportion of India's official GDP. If you please explain this in simple language, like what it intuitionally tells us, the graph.
Yes, yes. That's the thing I was telling you. Say, the GDP is y plus y equal to c plus I plus z, that plus x minus m. And what is the x minus m combining your and Tanusri's case? Tanusri has exported 1,000. You have imported 10,000. So our BOT is minus 9,000. So my GDP would be c plus I plus g minus 9,000. But if Tanusri has underreported it to 800 and you have overreported it to 1,500,000, then should my GDP be properly reported or not? The answer is not. So if not, what proportion of your GDP, if your actual is 1,000 and out of this 200 is unreported, then how much proportion is it? Is 200 by 1,000 or 20% of your GDP is unreported? So the vertical axis is actually showing what amount of GDP is you are not reporting. Either you are underreporting or you are overreporting as X and M. So X minus M is not proper report. And when this improper report goes into the Y, you get a fabricated GDP. And as from the US data or your trade partners data, I get what exactly Tanusri and Himadrija are doing in terms of their exports and imports. And from there, I calculate X minus M. So fabricated X minus M and actual X minus M, that difference is actually affecting this curve, the portion or the percentage which are not going into the official calculation reported by the government of India or the economic survey. Is it clear, Himadrija?
Yes, then the position of the graph in 2014, I think 14, what that means it is overreported.
Why it should be less than 0, right? Why it should be, what is meant by negative percentage? That perhaps
Yes,
your
yes.
question.
Yes.
Very good observation. Yes. That's I'm saying. Say either you can underreport or you can overreport. Say if, as our data shows, Himadrija's importer, since in India import taxes are a bit higher and there is hardly any black market premium now, so Himadrija continues to do underreport and Tanusri continues to do underreport. Now, if both of after a few minutes, I'll show you why Tanusri still does underreporting even the black market premium is 0. So if Tanusri and Himadrija both underreports, say 1,000 is your official GDP, and what it actually should have been 800. Then it is minus 200. What are the example I gave you? 1,200 minus the 1,000 divided by 1,000. Here I am giving you 800 minus 1,000 by 1,000. So either you could overreport, which might show your balance of trade is inflated, or you can underreport in such a way. Say, how does it take place? Say Himadrija's actual actual import is 10,000. Himadrija says, I did not import at all. So she says 0. তাহলে should your balance of trade look better or worse, Himadrija?
Worse.
It should look better.
Better.
Okay.
Better because you have taken $10,000 out
Positive.
of
Exactly. Sorry.
yeah, you have already taken $10,000 out of our GDP, but you say I didn't take any money. So actually it should look worse, but it does not look like that. So in 2014, if you take 2014 for the example, so it's seemingly, so far as our data set is showing, that the importers actually underreport so much that our balance of trade seems to be better than what could have been actually much worse than what we have. So this shows our report is on the opposite side. On the contrary, in other cases, it shows that you are actually reporting, but in the positive side. Himadrija has reported not zero, but say if she does 10,000, she reports 8,000 or something like that. So these are actually the numbers. Numbers adds, numbers subtracts, and whether they are positive and negative, that will depend upon the relative strength of your export and import values. That will be coming within moments. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So any other question? Any other question by anyone before I proceed to the core of our stuff? Now, what is the background that we need to understand before formulation of any mathematical framework? So now you yourself have said that these are the opportunistic behaviors. Opportunistic behaviors, and those behaviors are basically rational. And since this behavior are rational, has to be an important field of study in economics. It could be economics of crime and punishment, for which Baker got his Nobel. Economics of price control, black market tax evasion, corruption itself, famous papers by Slife and Vrishny and Rosekamel. Banerjee has very good papers on this, and economics of informal sector as well. And so these are, as one of you have said, that this could create some sort of black marketing behavior. So creation of excess shortage. You know that the very concept of black market. Why does black market take place in this pandemic? The black market of several things are being taken place. Why it is so? Black market means when government puts some price ceiling, isn't it? I think you know this, right? That the moment government puts some price ceiling, there has to be a black marketing. Yes or no? Do you agree with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Right. So black market takes place. If you leave it to the market, then black market hardly could have taken there. So now that you have certain price limits, black market does take place. Why? Because say I don't know whether kerosene oil is still given in this PDS stuff. When we were children, we used to go to take kerosene. We all used to go there. At that time, there was no APL, BPL kind of thing. On Saturdays and Sundays, especially on Sundays, I guess, when our schools were not there, I used to stand in the queue. Then my father used to go and take those whatever was given. So what I mean to say by this example, that usually the kerosene price in open market, say 20 rupees per liter, and in government control, which we known as PDS, this public distribution system, late market, their kerosene is 15 rupees per liter. From where should we buy? Should we buy from open market or from PDS market? So you all buy from the PDS market. Class 1 question. So the thing but the moment there's a upper limit on the prices, the sale gets constrained. you are not given more than say 2 liters per week, or more than say 500 ml per head or something like that. So that means you might have a lower price, but you might not get whatever you demand. And we know from our basic price demand relationship that the lesser the price, we demand more. So 15 rupees per liter, we need a little bit of more kerosene kerosene oil. We don't get that, we create black market. How do we create black market? Every time you go to the ration shop, at least in our time, we could see no kerosene oil are available. But if you go there in the evening when the ration shop was supposed to get closed, you get people selling kerosene oil at a premium of say 18 rupees per liter, or 19 rupees per liter, close to the market price. So that's the way black market is generated. So creating excess shortage is the threshold, is the basic condition for black market to be generated. So with this kind of observations, we get a very famous quote by Morgenstern, who first, in the history of world economics, first tried to, deliberately put the different countries' trade data and check, because trade data is also known as mirror data. So mirror should not tell lie. But what Morgenstern has found way back in 1963, that there are huge level of discrepancies between these two data. And this kind of, there he observed that the unavoidable existence of an unknown but undoubtedly substantial amount of deliberately falsified information presents a unique feature for this theoretical social science. And that's the reason today's topic is important, because here we'll be talking about having observed the empirical stuff and building theoretical social science on that observations. So what are the trade policy instruments? You yourself have said that the poor and developing countries like ours, we do practice restrictive foreign exchange and trade policies. The reasons could be foreign exchange crisis, heavy dependence on imports with limited export capabilities, more often influenced by political considerations. Say the liberals would have a very liberal regime of exports and imports. Now, if you think a very dogmatic communist for that matter, a leftist for that matter, they'll be always asking for protection, because they are kind of not eager to face competition, as they always consider their home industries to be infant industries. So if there is a left-related regime, if you find, they'll protect the country with huge trade barriers, exchange barriers. But the moment some educated, influential people, or rational people, I should say, govern, like we have this revolution in our economic policy the moment Manmohan Singh took up the charge as finance minister. And from then on, India's graph changed. Thanks to Dr. Manmohan Singh and the then Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao, the India story has changed, and now that we are dreaming that one day we could be the smaller brother of China. Previously, we could have thought we could be a smaller brother of the likes of Cuba and other things. Now we could rationalize and idealize China, that one day we could even match China on trade and exchange rates. So from then on, so if you just very minutely look at Indian economic stuffs, be it trade, be it internal economics, be it external economics, and the graph and the growth of Indian statistics, be it trade, be it production, be it development, So it's absolute the scenario change post 1990s after Dr. Manmohan Singh took over as finance minister. Now, of course, people might say the left-leaning people, I guess still some people are left-leaning. They would find that also escalated the poverty gap. Poorer got more poorer, richer got more richer. That's true. Even though that's not the topic of our discussion today, but that leads to your skill formation. Unless you face competition, unless you form skills, you are not supposed to get enough. So if you are the only one student in a class, you are always supposed to get first. So unless you compete with at least a handful of students and get some skill to be formed, you will never be able to stand the competition when it opens, like what has happened post 1991. And after that, Bajpayee ji, Manmohan Singh as finance prime minister, and now Modi ji, they're all taking the economy to that reforms that initiated by Dr. Manmohan Singh. So, given that, still, as you have rightly said, that there still could be tariff, there still could be control on capital, there still could be stringent foreign exchange and trade policies to protect our economy. There is nothing wrong in that so far as our capitals are concerned. Because as the examples I gave in the form of Tanushree and Himadrija, who are not rightly reporting their foreign exchange, they are actually harming our countries by sending foreign currency abroad or keeping it underground. And both are actually blasphemous from the concepts, from the perspective of the economic situation, economic interest of our country. So let's continue with this discussion. And what is black market premium? One of you talked about black market premium. So black market exchange, let's define black market exchange rate. It refers to an unofficial market exchange rate and includes the premium. We call it a black market premium that reflects the pent-up demand pressure that foreign exchange restrictions are intended to contain. Why there was black market premium? As I told, I gave you my example. When I first visited a foreign country in 2002 as I think a research scholar, there was an upper limit of taking dollar you can take. So I took $500 with me. Everything else was free for me. I was given the air ticket. I was arranged the hotel and other stuffs. Only I had to pay for my local transport. And if I could dine outside. If I could shop something for near and dear ones. So that's why I took $500 with me. And that's the upper limit. And why upper limit? Because you are receiving the foreign currency at a cheaper rate than the markets I gave you example of. So the moment there is an excess demand, it takes the money up, it takes the price up. And exactly that's the reason black market premium, or the black market to be precise, got formed. Some numbers you see, these numbers might, not only for India. Way back in last decade, in 2009, even the Soviet blocs, who were supposed to be developed blocs, Ukraine had an overvalued exchange rate. Kazakhstan has 100% overvalued exchange rate, and countries like Iran, these Islamic countries, they have the huge Afghanistan. There's a huge overvalued exchange rate, and Pakistan 25%. Even China had about 11% overvalued exchange rate. Can you tell me why overvalued exchange rates are usually put in place? What are the reasons that overvalued exchange rates are being or rather used to practice even about 5 years ago? What could be the economic reasons for that?
And because they can export more.
Overvalued is exporting more, or undervalued means exporting more, Sujata?
Oh, sorry.
Actually, overvalued means so that you can take care of your import cost. So that makes your import cheaper.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
to take care of your balance of trade, you are having an overvalued exchange rate that might, so you are actually very defensive. You are actually not going for liberalization. You are protecting your home stuffs by actually, so that you can get imports cheaper and not focusing on and these imports, you might say that, sir, by having more imports, how can you protect your country? These imports are actually either capital imports or primary imports. So that, think of machinery, think of countries like Pakistan or Algeria or Libya or Iran. I guess hardly any of these countries are quite good in science and technology. So they had to buy. They still perhaps have to depend upon high-end technologies on the OECDs. So these things, these are the reasons that they have undervalued exchange rate. And now come to the case of tariff. You see the lower part, they are showing some tariff rate. Tariff rate on agricultural commodities, our very own India, having a tariff on agricultural commodities range from 65% to 166% in India. It is about 100% in Pakistan, 150% in Nigeria, about 166% in Mexico, and even in Switzerland. You know, Switzerland, most of you perhaps know, Switzerland is a country of chocolates. The most of the famous chocolates, they come from Switzerland, and they have very high quality milk and cheese. So to protect their homegrown dairy, Switzerland has had a tariff in the range of 150%. So this might cause, like I gave the Himadrija's example, to underreport your basket. Even if Switzerland is importing, say, a bit medium quality chocolates or coca or product from Deutschland, they would be underreporting those. Even though they are sharing borders, they would be underreporting those, because just to evade some amount of taxes. Well, so market distortions. So the moment the market, what are the definition of distortions? The distortions are when the theory of first base, or the first welfare theorem, the Pareto efficiency theorem are violated. They are known as distortions. The moment you are not allowing market to play a role, we all say the markets are paramount. My teacher, my PhD supervisor, Professor Sugato Marjit, used to give us examples. Say when we were just entered into this research, he gave us used to give us certain kind of challenges. So we had about 4 or 5 economic students at the Center for Studies in Social Sciences in early 2000s. And here he used to say, I want to know who has got a high private tuition rate. And none of us used to give private tuition, but he used to challenge us. Amit, how much money do you get by private tuition? I said this, I never gave private tuition. There are some ABCDs who say, one guy used to command a huge fees for private tuition, say about 1,000 rupees at that time per month for a 1-week class for the undergrad economic students. And Professor Marjit used to say, this must be the best boy, because in private market they only pay for whom they get real benefit. What happens in public when you do not allow market to play its role? It's almost chalk and cheese are being equalized. But when think of private doctors, or private lawyers. Usually, those doctors who have a very high fees and still had a beeline in front of his or her chambers, that gives you a signal. I'm not saying these are good or bad practices. I'm not going into the ethics, mind it. I'm teaching you economics, and I'm giving you examples in economics of market distortions and market perfections. So if a doctor charges 1,000 rupees per patient and still you have about 30 patients in the waiting room, while he does not take more than 30 patients per session, means he has to be a very good doctor. Where there are doctors that take 200 rupees or 300 rupees and they are still, in Bengali we say machi tarache kind of thing. According to going by this signaling, they might not be good doctors, unless you say, sir, those are the benevolent doctors, they hardly take money. I'm not going into that ethical part. I'm just saying you the simple yardstick of allowing market to play its role, and then you separate the chalk and cheese. If a teacher teaches you very well, you will always be into his domain or into her domain. And if a teacher does not teach that well, and if it's a public university or government colleges or something like that, you can't do enough. But what you do, I know my students, I could see Himadrija, Tanusri to be my ex-students here. What they could do, they simply avoid the classes. Okay, let's not do the classes, let's bunk the classes, because they find that the opportunity cost might be very high. Tanusri, Himadrija might do well by just singing or dancing or doing something else rather than attending those classes, because these are pretty bogus for them. So these are market distortions, because when you allow market to play its role, perfectly competitive market, then a teacher that does not have enough student in his or her class, kind of a signal that he or she is not a good student, and a teacher for whom people might wait for hours to attend the classes might be good teachers. So these are examples of market perfections and having well enhanced markets. But market distortion, in your screen, I am just saying the contrary. Market distortions, you are not allowing competition. You are allowing the same yardstick for chalk and cheese. So how do you make a chalk looks like a cheese? You are having tariffs, you are having quotas, you are having restrictions on foreign exchange market, you are having restrictions on whether to invest in NASDAQ or whether to invest in Bombay stock market. So if these kind of restrictions are there, then like what Tanusri and Himadrija were doing in my examples, they might distort the exchange values, because they have their purposes pretty clear. Look, I want to gain this, I don't want to lose this, and that's my idea to catch me if you can kind of thing. So these are the things that you have to keep in mind. So I have already given you the definitions of actual versus official data. Foreign traders in LDCs, the pictures I have shown to you, and these are known as the distortions. Why these are called distortions? Because you are not properly reporting. If you have properly reported this, then you could erase the term distortions. And as this class has rightly said, it could be export tax or subsidy, it could be quantitative restriction, high tariff rate, black market premium, blah, blah, blah. And this might generate this distortion, and which could be kind of brought to justice or taken to justice by cross-checking this Tanusri's reported value vis-a-vis Tanusri's partner's reported value, Himadrija's reported value vis-a-vis Himadrija's partner reported value. There are many literature, I am not talking much, but I must say one literature by Jagdish Bhagwati, perhaps the most famous economist that we have in India, the living legend Jagdish Bhagwati, who actually took everything, who gave shape to everything that we are talking today. He has a very, very famous book called Illegal Transactions in International Trade. It's a North Holland Elsevier publication, and it detailed how a pure mathematical and empirical illustration of what kind of distortion and this corruption could take place in international economics, to be very specific.
Sir, can you
And
please repeat the name of the book written by Bhagwati? Illegal transaction?
this is illegal transactions in international trade. The series is known as Studies in International Trade, and the book is Illegal Transaction in International Trade, edited by Jagdish Bhagwati. Well, so this is one seminal literature that one has to study if he or she gets interest in this kind of analysis. So what is the objective? As I have said, we are all rational human beings. So we try to rationalize this trade misreporting phenomenon. We are not doing it for being a deshopremik or deshodrohi or something like that. We have our own welfare function. We do what confirms us to do to be in this sequence of things. And we take up this export, import, and balance of trade framework and examine this stuff. So let us, here ends our empirical things. If you have any questions, you can throw at me. Else I'll be going now to the model formulation. Any question by anyone? By far, I have more than an hour. I might go to take a glass of water. You take about 5 minutes of rest. Should I take about 5 minutes there, because I'm feeling a bit
Yes, sir, yes,
thirsty
sir.
and Dwaya, can I do that
Yes, sir,
before
yes, sir.
continuing? So,
Yes.
okay, thank you. So please give me a 5-minute break. I'll be joining at 4:20. Okay. Okay. See you at 4:20. Okay. Are you here? Are you all here?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir.
So let us. Sujata, yes, tell me. So, is there any question by anyone up till this that we might discuss before I enter into the theoretical framework? Well, let me now just write in terms of symbols the story that we have presented so far. So you see, when a trader or exporter, to be very specific, is not reporting properly, we make an X, which is OT, which is official, or only T, which is actual. So here XOT is the officially reported export, the export that Tanushree make. Tanushree export, it is 800, and this is 1000, that the example that we had in the build-up story. And how do we relate it? We write it XOT equal to 1 minus alpha xt. Alpha could take any value. If alpha less than 0, that might be overreport. If alpha greater than 0, that in our example, in our case, underreport. You can easily change the symbols of the of this the signs of these symbols. It does not make much changes to the model that we are trying to build. And this V is known as the black market premium. In the story, we talk about the difference between market rate, which is the street side rate, minus the official rate that are controlled by the government or the RBI. And we assume this gap is always positive, therefore VT is greater than 0. And if there is any devaluation or depreciation of my official currency, which is capital E, which is small e, would make these to fall, because if E goes up, ET does not change. You know this gap would fall. Therefore, the dVdt, or the change in V with respect to change in T, is less than 0. These are the simplest of the ways we could write down what the stories, the way we started the stories so far. And now, what as a rational exporter I would stand to gain or lose if I do not report properly? So what does he or she gain if someone misreports? So let your capital XOT is your official value of export. You go to the RBI and declare, look sir, I have exported 800 units of $800 of goods to the US. RBI, what RBI does, it takes $800 from you and gives the equivalent amount of foreign exchange, which is by government rate, small et. And let there be an export subsidy. For the example, for the time being, there is no tax, only subsidy on export. So what you have declared, I am saying that what instead of tax I am having subsidies. I'll tell you within seconds. So ET, ST, XOT is yours, what you get as subsidy in terms of your officially denominated exchange rate. But this is your 200. XT, what Tanushree actually makes, 8,000 euros of $1,000 of export, and she reports $800 of export. So she has $200 extra. She goes to the near this Great Eastern Hotel and sells it at some extra rate, which is capital ET bigger than small et. This is so far her gain is concerned. But does it mean that she'll never get caught? She'll never be brought to justice? There might be a punishment cost. To make it simple, I didn't attach any probability part into it, but you can easily have a P probability of whether he or she gets caught, whether she gives the bribe and gets come clean. These things can easily be done. But since tonight or this evening, I'm simply talking about the basic formation of your mathematical modeling. I'll be confining myself to the easiest of those things. So the cost of your misreporting is how much you are not reporting, how much you are keeping away from the government. And this is your, and your cost is a function of how much you are not reporting, and it's a convex kind of cost. Perhaps some of you know what is a convex thing. When both the first and second order derivative are positive, it calls a convex cost. Means it's a very stringent cost. The more the more is the value of your theft, the more is your stringent punishment. For an example, this is not so irrational. Think of you have cheated in an exam. You have cheated in an exam. Should you be hanged? Should you be put into prison? At most, you might be, you might not be allowed to sit for the exam for 1 semester. But if you kill a person, you are supposed to be dealt with stringent punishment. You might be hanged. You might be imprisoned for life. So I mean to say by these examples, given the strong or the higher the value of your punishment, the greater should be your cost. And that is what I mean by this convex punishment cost. And if you simply go for the first order condition, you see that the trade-off is between, that's the reason I didn't put any tax and the subsidy, because the more you underreport, that the more you lose in terms of subsidy, right? Because if Tanushree indeed exports 1,000 and she reports 800, she is losing subsidy on 200 units of, or $200 worth of export. But since she is more interested in selling those foreign currencies in black market, a trade-off is between VT, V, and ETST. If VT is greater than ETST, she will underreport. If VT is less than ETST, she will overreport. As you see in your screen, these are the results. And if they're equal, you will be Ramakrishna. You will never be dishonest. If VT equals ETST. So these are the catches. You see how am I building this framework? Usually some people say, oh, mathematical modeling are so tough, it's rocket science. It's not like that. It is perhaps easier than some of the empirical things, because two of my students are doing something, two of my PhD students who are doing something on empirics. And I always find empirics is much tougher than the theory, because you are always, waiting for good results to come. You are at the mercy of data. If your data does not give you good results and that does not corroborate to your, hypothesis, then you are nowhere. But in mathematical modeling, you can tinker with these signs, these symbols, and those formulae to have an equation that suits you. So it's always easier to have a mathematical model rather than doing empirics. And nowadays, unless you are doing some extensive, well-funded primary survey, people even throw those primary surveys out, saying, "Oh, you have made some, you rigged those data. You just you put your data in such a way that it matches your hypothesis." I've seen people just tinkering with the data set so that it corroborates to their hypothesis. That's the reason it is very, very hard for researchers, especially from the developing countries, to publish in good journals. By journals, I mean A-grade journals, not some journals, the street side journals. So they really take care of how do you gather data. If the data is secondary data, if the data comes from the very respected houses like IMF, World Bank, FAO or UN stat or OECD stat or RBI stat, they are really happy with it. But then to quote some not so famous data houses, your data are always questioned. This to satisfy the referees. I'm selling those publication stories to you as well, because all of you need good publications to survive in this cutthroat competitive market in academics. It becomes more like a corporate market nowadays. Without points, without APIs, it is very tough for you to go upstairs, and you need a quality research, and that too by satisfying all the terms of conditions of good research, good ethics, good data sources, etc., etc. So that's the reason I say I always find theoretical research or a mathematical research are much more easier than dealing something with data. Well, so this is how are we forming our initial objective functions. Now, what is our objective here? We want to see how are those these variables like tariff, like subsidy, like domestic exchange rate, they affect my behavior, and these are captured. Most all of you have mathematical economics or mathematics at +2 level, so it's easier for you to understand. You see that.
Sir, I have a request.
উত্তম দা বলো। উত্তম দা, আমি একটা লেকচারে আছি, আমি তোমাকে 6টার পরে ফোন করি। ওকে ওকে, please have your question.
Sir, can you please re-explain the equation from the
Yeah, of
first
course.
previous
Right,
slide?
Right, of course I'll do, because that's I am trying to make you convinced. So here, how are we forming our objective functions? You see, I gave the example of Tanushree. Tanushree is exporting 1,000 euro of bioseeds to US. So Tanushree should have reported $1,000 worth of bioseed export to RBI, but she does not. She is actually reporting to the government that I am exporting $800 worth of good. So the moment Tanushree reports $800, this XOT is her 800, and I multiply it with say 70 rupees that prevails at the exchange market, which controlled by the government. So Tanushree get 800 multiplied by 70 as domestic currency. This is the first part of my right hand side. What does the second component say? It says, since there are export subsidies on bioseed export or organic seed export, Tanushree is supposed to receive a subsidy on $1,000 worth of seeds that she has exported. But since she herself reported $800 of goods, she would not get subsidy on 1,000 but 800. So my second term is 70 into say subsidy rate is 5% into say 800. But she has the purpose of not reporting. This is 1,000 minus 800, which is 200. She is selling it at the black rate, and say black rate is say government rate is 70, black rate is say 77. So here her gain is the 77 multiplied by 200. This is her gain, and this is the cost, because she has to be ready if the a monitor catches her red-handed. She has to pay some fine.
Sir, what is ET in third component?
capital E.
Yes, sir.
Capital E denotes your market exchange rate, the exchange rate that are available in the old courthouse street, okay? Where you are selling at the black rate. Government is selling at rupees 70 per dollar. Black rate is say rupees 77 per dollar.
Yes,
So
sir. Okay,
capital
understood.
it is your black rate, small it is your official rate. Is it clear?
Sir, yes, sir. Absolutely.
Great. So now what we are doing is to check the role of the parameters or the exogenous variables that are affecting my behavior. And what is my behavior? What is the component that I'm trying to maximize? I'm trying to optimize the value alpha. Alpha is the component that I'm thinking of. It is my decision variable. Our decision variable is not XOT. My decision variable is not XT because XT is given. XOT is determined by me, but XOT is determined by alpha. So my whole objective function is dependent upon what portion I hide, and the hidden portion is alpha. And now I would see if my exchange rate devalues, then should I underreport more or should I underreport less? So in our example, in the model that we are forming, it shows that if my currency devalues, I should underreport less. You see del alpha del et less than 0. Or I should overreport more. Del minus alpha del et greater than 0. For the time being, forget about del minus alpha. This is not required. Just focus on this. Del alpha del t. So if my currency devalues, then I will underreport less. But here comes the job of a researcher. I would like to know from you, how do we economically justify the answer? Mathematically, my result is the partial derivative d alpha det is less than, it should be less than 0, and why should it corroborate to our hypothesis that, or it should form our hypothesis that has to be tested empirically. Why should alpha fall, or rather, if I say in a more preemptive way, why should my underreporting fall if my currency is weakened, if my currency is devalued? Do you have an answer for that? It's very easy, by the way. The answer is my premium. You see, now it is less attractive. Previously, Tanushree had a premium of 77 minus 70. Now this 70 is going up slowly. Now say 70 has become 75. So Tanushree's gain now falls from 70 to 7 to 2. Previously it was 77 minus 70. Now it is 77 minus 75. So her incentive to underreport and sell the foreign currency in black market falls. As her incentive of selling unreported dollar in black market falls, why should he report less? So as a reason, these logics are very important. You have to tell me whether you are convinced with this logic or not, because unless you understand these intuitions of mathematical derivations, my job remains incomplete. I want you to take care of this mathematical intuition and economic intuition together, and they should go hand in hand to give you the full knowledge of an economics researcher. You can either do good mathematics, you can either or you can do good economics, like some say descriptive economics, writing stuff after stuff after stuff, but neither supported by mathematics nor supported by empirics, making you a laughing stock. So these things are very much required for a modern day student of economics or a teacher of economics. So do have a look of how do we justify this del alpha del et less than 0, and how am I justifying it? As my official exchange rate is going up, amount of black market premium falls. Therefore, it is less attractive for me to go for that corrupt practice. to go for underreporting of export. So I'll lower the rate of underreporting. Previously, Tanushree was underreporting 200. She was reporting 800. Now perhaps she would be reporting 900, and her rate of and her underreporting value has fallen from 200 to 100. This is for small et. And what is the other variable that we had in our objective function? That was export tariff. If tariff goes up, what happens to the result? If tariff goes up, again my underreporting falls, or if subsidy goes up, not tariff. If subsidy goes up, my underreporting falls, or my overreporting goes up. This is also very easy to understand. If subsidy goes up, she was already missing on $200 worth of export, subsidy on $200 worth of export. If the subsidy looks more attractive, she will stop underreporting. She will, in fact, might overreport. She might overreport to get more subsidy. So these are the ways you can justify what you are getting in terms of your mathematical modeling, the results, outcome of the theoretical framework that you are building. If there is any question on it, you do stop me and let me know that you need sort of clarifications. Now, how do I draw this diagram? The third job of a good student of economics is to have diagrams, because you are also, some of you are also teachers. It is always easier for the students if you come up with some good diagrams to convince the students in a more easier way, because mathematics are a bit more relatively more tougher tool than diagrams to convince the students. So here are the diagrams. How do we draw the diagram based on the story and the mathematical models we did derive? You see, I talked about your punishment cost to be convex. This is indeed convex. This is your punishment cost, f prime, this marginal cost. And I am putting all the marginal functions here. This is your zero axis. Zero means you are honest. Going either right or left, you are dishonest. Right, you are underreporting when you should underreport, as I told you in this discussion. If your black market premium is more attractive than subsidy rate, then you are underreporting. As black market premium falls, your underreporting falls. You see, previously you are underreporting this much, now you are underreporting that much. So as your black market reporting, this corroborates to the just partial derivative results of the partial derivatives that we had in our hand. This is the right hand side of the story. What is the left hand side of the story? Here we say subsidy is greater than black market premium. If that happens, you see, if subsidy was here, you are overreporting this much. If subsidy has gone up to this much, then your overreporting has gone up. So vertical axis measuring your marginal revenue and marginal cost, and the horizontal axis gives you your alpha. Alpha positive, alpha negative. So we are having two quadrants here. This is plus quadrants, this is plus minus quadrants, where we are measuring these things. Now, you look at it very well. Let me know if you have any problem in understanding this diagram, whether it corroborates to your the results of the theory or not, and I'll proceed again. So far, any question by anyone? Is it too tough? Is it too easy? Is it too boring? I don't understand. Or is, other than Sujata, Himadrija and Tanushree, anyone else is sleeping? Everyone else is sleeping? I don't know. But these are the things I would like to get your feedback before I proceed further. This is about export model. Is there any comments by anyone other than Sujata, Himadrija, and Tanushree? Are you finding it too easy, too boring, too tough? What are your observations on this presentation so far? Okay. Sheila perhaps too busy doing something. She only writes. She does not talk. Okay, that's all. That's pretty doable.
No, sir. No, sir. I'm listening, sir.
No, just kidding.
Yes, sir.
Just kidding.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So these are all about our exports model. My only request to you that if you feel too bored, let me know, because it will be wastage of time both for you and me. If you are sleeping also, let me know. I'll also go to sleep. And if you are listening, then I'll continue. So these are the three options. All the three options are available to me, and I'm happy with either of these three. So that's all about our, this export model. Now, how does the story change when we talk about the Himadrija's case? We talked about Tanushree's case. We'll be talking about Himadrija's case, who underreports or misreports, to be general. Himadrija was importing $10,000 of import basket. That was her $10,000 is empty. But she is a corrupt importer. She does not report properly. She might either underreport or overreport, reflected in MOT. So we write this equation as MOT equal to 1 minus beta MT. Beta was as similar as what was alpha in the previous case, the rate of import misreporting. Again, if it is less than 0 means overreporting, greater than 0 means underreporting. And we are forming the similar way we have formed the objective function. There is a basic difference between these two functions is that, you see, imports are being brought from abroad and then you are selling those. Say Himadrija has imported, say, 30 laptops, and she is now marketing those 30 laptops by pasting the name of her agency, say some company X. So she has imported some laptops from US, gave the tag of imported by Himadrija as company X, and she will sell and get an import revenue given by R. So first part of the right hand side, the first component in the right hand side is your revenue, which is a function of your amount of actual import. Because in any case, whether you are saying 15,000 or 5,000, Himadrija is importing $10,000 worth of import. So this is the first component. What is second component? Himadrija says Himadrija went to the Reserve Bank before import, and she told the government, look, I will be importing 5,000 worth of laptops. So she outrightly underreports 50% of her import value. So Himadrija gives $5,000 worth of domestic currency, Indian rupee in our case, and RBI gives her $5,000. Himadrija pays tariff on not 10,000, which is her actual import. She pays tariff on her reported import, which is 5,000, and therefore the third component of this objective function, which is ET dt into MOT. MOT is Himadrija's reported import. DT, the tariff on the reported import, and small et, as you know from the last section, is your official exchange rate. But how Himadrija can finance the rest of the import basket? Can you tell me? How can she manage the rest of $5,000 to pay to her importer? If it is over invoicing, it was easier. But since she is underreporting, how is it possible for her to pay for that unreported basket? Where from does she get money?
From this ETDT minus VT, that amount? If,
No. ETDT minus BT comes later. But first you have to pay. Say, since you are buying $10,000 worth of laptops, you have to pay that guy. So how do you pay at the first place? Because the government gives you $5,000 because you told the government that I am importing $5,000 worth of laptops. How do you find that?
From hawker, she can buy the rest amount.
Exactly, from the black market. She needs to go to that old courthouse street beside the RBI office where she can gather the rest of her money, rest of her foreign dollar money to, finance her unreported basket. Very good. So that's
but
the reason
then the cost of financing the rest of the money will be increasing now, because
Exactly, right. You are absolutely right. That's the reason ETDTVT comes into play. You are absolutely right. If I have to pay more than what I am paying to the RBI, why should I go there? And the reason we discussed, Tanushree told that if the tariff is so high, you must. Your strategy is, your objective is to evade the taxes, which to you are more costly than buying at the buying from the from the hawkers who sell foreign currencies. And that exactly, to answer your question, comes our first order condition. But before that, let me also talk about this cost function again, like the export function, which is FMT minus MOT, which is how much you are underreporting or overreporting or misreporting, to be general. And now see when you will do what. You see, if your ETDT, the example we gave so far, if you find that tariff is more stringent, tariff is more striking to you compared to what you are paying to buy at the hawkers, then you will go for underreporting. But as Himadrija herself says, if I find going to the old courthouse street buying the dollar almost at a double price than the RBI rate, why should I go and underreport? I better overreport. So if Himadrija finds black market premium are more costly compared to tariff, then she will overreport. Himadrija, is it clear what should one do under what circumstance? Good,
Yes.
very good. Now again, okay, I think we did not. Okay, I very quickly I tell you the the signs of the partial derivatives. Now, what should happen to beta? You tell me. If DT goes up, if tariff goes up, should Himadrija increase her underreporting or not? If tariff goes up?
Yes, underreporting goes up.
Increase.
Very good. If black market premium goes up, should she do opposite?
Yes, I will report correctly.
Correctly, you will
Correctly,
not be reporting because
not under.
you
she will earn more from black market.
right. Very good. She will over-report. Actually, correct reporting must be done, but the very basic of our discussion today is that you are corrupt. All the traders are corrupt. They are not reporting properly. So if they are not reporting properly, what else they should do? And that's the reason that you must not report properly unless and until VT equals ETDT. So Sujata is right. So one should, increase over reporting if she finds black market premium to be more attractive. In that case, like Tanushree, Himadrija will also go to the black market and sell other than buying. Good. So now let us talk about the balance of trade framework. That captures what Himadrija first raised, that what about this GDP curve? GDP curve sometimes getting lower than the zero axis, upper to zero axis, and what is meant by negative percentile. So here this answer should be clear. You see BOT equal to official BOT. I'm not talking about actual BOT. Official BOT is your XOT minus MOT. But in your GDP, one should think of XT minus MT. But you are fabricating. Both Himadrija and Tanushree are fabricating, and therefore we get a balance of trade which is not actual. And we can say that this is 1 minus alpha XT minus 1 minus beta MT. And this is, you get, now you see the questions I raised at that time. If your currency devalues, should your official balance of trade looks better or worse? Just think carefully and answer. In your screen, you could see the see in your Rupam. Would you like to say something?
Yes, sir. If my currency devalues, then it means that my imports are now becoming relatively costlier compared to the previous situation, and my exports are becoming relatively more competitive in the world market. So as a result, it depends upon elasticity. If my export goes up and import goes down, then obviously there is a chance that my BOT is going to improve.
Right. So Rupam is talking about the Marshall-Lerner condition actually.
Yes.
Okay. That's right. That's theory, what he talks about. But in this case, we are having a fabricated thing. So here, as I am giving the examples of Himadrija and Tanushree, first think what Tanushree would do in terms of export underreporting if my currency devalues. And we have seen that Tanushree would lower her underreporting. Tanushree would now report more. So export should look nicer in case of export underreporting. What happens in case of import underreporting? If ET devalues, Himadrija should underreport more or less. If small ET goes up, go to the previous slide. That would make that thing clear. What would happen in this case if small ET goes up? Should beta go up or go down? Beta is your rate of underreporting or misreporting.
Goes up.
Why does it go up?
Because in exchange of my currency, I get more foreign currency.
It should go up. Himadrija is right. Underreporting should go up because it is less costly for you to now buy from the black market. Sutarang, you will increase your underreporting. Now the question is, if both export underreporting and import underreporting goes up with respect to devaluation of currency, what should happen to my balance of trade? Export underreporting goes down, import underreporting goes up. So it should look nicer. Balance of trade look nicer. So if balance of trade look nicer compared to actual, then Himadrija, we are actually kind of having a much rosier picture than what it is. In that case, your graph will go less than 0. Okay.
Yes.
And second, if subsidy goes up, our export would be overreported. Again, balance of trade would look nicer. If tariff goes up, again we will underreport the import, and our balance of trade looks nicer. So all three aspects. Let's now kind of summarize the things that we have so far of the results. So first, devaluation takes place. Black market premium falls. Domestic currency augmented subsidy rises. So export under invoicing falls, or overreporting rises. So our balance of trade should look nicer, which are actually not. Second, domestic currency augmented tariff rate, if it goes up and BMP falls, then import under invoicing again rises, or over invoicing falls, improved beauty. Export subsidy rises, improved beauty. Balance import tariff rises, again improved balance of trade. So all those things would lead us to your improved balance of trade. And now you take this component back to y equal to x plus c, y equal to c plus I plus g plus x minus m. That takes you to that unofficial component, and that makes that graph. Let me revisit that graph for you to understand it more carefully. That is the reason for the graph to be like this. Okay, whether I have my x minus m to be positive, negative, or the relative strength of your x minus m will keep these curves moving like this, the way it is. You see, it is kind of an inverted U-shaped curve. It has gone up till say 2004-5, and then slowly it is coming down. So you see that in the initial process of your reforms, you kind of cheated more so far as the GDP proportions are concerned, and now it is slowly rationalized. Post 2004-5, it is getting rationalized. That's the reason. Empirics are the very, very foundation of any economic theory one should build. We can't go with one without the other. They must go hand in hand. A good empirics must give you a very solid foundation for your theoretical research, for your mathematical model building. A mathematical model building must not be too abstract, absolutely devoid of empirical evidences. So we must have a kind of a mix of both. In fact, having equal weightage to both empirics as well as theory enhances your scope of publishing in good journals. The stories that we have presented so far, it comes from 4 papers. Now I am giving you references. These are Biswas and Marjit 2005, Journal of Economic Reforms, 2007, International Review of Economics and Finance, my own 2008 Economic Modeling, 2011, I and Professor Sarbojit Sengupta, Economics and Politics. 2012, I wrote a paper on Journal of International Trade and Economic Development. 2015, again, I and Professor Sarbojit Sengupta wrote a paper in Economics and Politics. And this year, 2021, I and my German collaborators, we have just, a paper has just been accepted in Journal of International Money and Finance, one of the top, perhaps one of the topmost journals in the field of international economics. So these papers taken together, I have briefly kind of tried to summarize these things. If you have any question, I'll be happy to answer. If not, I'll be very briefly going to the second part of my presentation. I don't have much time left. I have about 20 minutes left with me. So just to give you a glance of how informal sectors can be taken into consideration while building frameworks or mathematical frameworks. So what should I do? Should I go to the second part of my presentation, or do you want me to stay with it and ask questions? What should I do? It is up to you.
So you can proceed further.
With the second part of the presentation, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So this is, I think I would be able to only show you the evidences and a glimpse of perhaps the background. Might not go into the mathematical problems due to the paucity of time, but I think that should also benefit to write stories, to form stories, because those who are deep interest in combining theoretical and empirical research, these statistics might be of interest to you. So this is in the second part. Our objective is to introduce you to the informal sector and how does it affect the environment where. So first we'll talk about definition, size and presence of informal sector. How does informal sector affect the environment? The role of public policy in tackling environmental degradation in the presence of informal sector. And in the presence of corrupt activities, how can the formal sector vitiate the environment? Let me also tell you the references of these stories. The initial story is one of the most cited papers of mine in ecological economics, with again my German collaborators. This is published in 2012, Ecological Economics, Volume 75. Pollution, Shadow Economy and Corruption, Theory and Evidence, the name of the paper. And we use the second paper that has been used to formulate this story is Biswas and Marcel Thum, in Environment and Development Economics, Cambridge University Press. And third is a present work I am doing with Marcel Thum and Professor Sharbudit Sengupta, a paper on theory on formal informal interaction with respect to environmental regulation and production. So combining these three, we form this story for you to understand and have a gauge of it. So that's the essence. So you see the size of the informal sector across the world, and needless to say, the poorer a region is, the higher is the incidence of the informal sector. You see the sub-Saharan Africa, the poorest among the globes. So it is the huge informal sector, and OECDs have the lowest incidence of the informal sector. We, the South Asians, are doing in the as in the middle. You see this in 2017, 2010, 2017, it is about 34% as part of your GDP. Now, informal sector is a non-farm agricultural employment. We know most of Asia and Latin America, South Africa's informal employment comes from agriculture, but this is non-agricultural informal sector around the world. Again, Sub-Saharan Africa are the leaders, followed by our zone, South and Southeast Asia. And again, the transition and developed countries, they have the lowest incidence of informal employment. Now, what is the shadow or informal or black or unreported economy? You see, if you want to tag with the environmental stuff, the shadow economy comprises economic activities that circumvent the cost and are excluded from the benefit and rights of incorporated in the laws and administrative rules covering property relationships, commercial licensing, labor contracts, torts, financial credit, and of course the social system. This is the famous comment by Page in 2005, one of the IMF staffers. Now, why do the informal economies generate? What are the drivers of the informal economy? First is lack of capital. As you don't have much capital to have a formal economy, because formal economy needs formalization of everything, like license to have water connection, fire license, electric things, the land, the labor safety, labor rules, labor regulations, machines, whether machines are shock proof or not. So everything needs to be taken care of. And unless you have enough capital and technology to start with, you are in a low level equilibrium trap, and you go for less fixed and more variable cost kind of thing to operate. Second is fiscal freedom. As I have already said, the more you are in a formal economy, more you are tax burden. Think of us, the professors. We are earning whatever it is via the government stuff, and we're having everything deducted as tax, deducted as sources, TDS. But think of famous doctors, engineers, lawyers, private tutors. They are earning perhaps what we are earning in a month, they are perhaps earning in days. A good doctor to operate takes about $1 lakh per operation. So can you imagine how much money do they generate? But they keep the money informal and do not have to pay taxes. And they generate black money. The moment you are not paying taxes on your legitimate income, that makes it illegitimate, and it becomes a black money. And that's the reason demonetization took place in 2017. But unfortunately, due to some corrupt nexus between bankers and the black market owners, the policy didn't yield as better result as we expected. The intentions were quite good, but the results were not so good. In fact, bad on the informal economy. Informal economy was completely broken due to lack of cash in hand for most of the poor people who unlike you and me, who do transaction online or cards or something else. They do transact in terms of cash and hard currencies, and they really had problem when demonetization took place. But those the targeted people like doctors, lawyers, industrialists, they escaped just having links with politicians and the bankers. So basically, fiscal freedom is one of the major reasons for having an informal or a black economy. Institutions, if you do not believe in an institution, and if you believe institutions are highly corrupt, then you might not be able to just go and have faith in it. And currency, that's the reason currency is very important. Okay, you tell me, having more cash is a sign of having a dominant formal economy or having a dominant informal economy. If more cash, which is M1, having more cash in circulation, does it give dominance to a formal economy or an informal economy?
Informal economy.
Right. Because if you go and stay abroad for more than 6 months or so, you will never find a doctor or a lawyer taking cash from you. Say, let me tell you a story. Say, if you want to visit a doctor in Europe, then you simply want to have get a appointment fixed, because you never know that while you get hurt or while you get ill, you are having money with yourself or not. So money is not a factor while consulting a doctor. And I'm not talking about public hospital, I'm talking about private just checkup. So you simply log in to a doctor's chamber and check these slots, this time is available, and you book it. You visit this. Doctor checks you, gives you medicines, and no money at all. You come with these prescriptions, you go to a medical shop, and you buy those medicines. After a week or so, the bill would be coming to your house, to your registered address, that you visited this doctor on that date, that time, and this is the service charge of that doctor. Say that is, say, 30 euro or 50 euro. And underline is the bank account number where you have to submit the fees. What I mean by this story, no doctor is allowed to take fees with hard currencies. Every doctor needs to be paid with bank transfers. Now, that does not mean the doctors are Yudhishthira Santan in those countries. The doctors are not Dhua Tulsi Pata. Everyone wants to have money which is unaccounted for. But what is the reason for that? Why doctors are forced to take money in terms of bank transfer and not in cash? Do you have any wild guess that why this should happen? What could be the reasons behind this?
For insurance purpose.
Exactly, Anurag. The reason is that every individual I was giving you the example of Germany. Every individual there was insured, be it outpatient, be it inpatient. So unless you pay the doctor fees in terms of online transfer, you can't claim that insurance. So you send the doctor's money via online transfer, keep the receipt. You went to buy the medicine, keeping the receipt. You post those receipts to your insurer. Money is transferred in your bank account. There is hardly any scope for unaccounted for income for any doctor. This thing we must follow. We know that we have a kind of heterogeneous group of populations, but at least for a richer population, at least from middle class population onwards, you should have these things to be done. But unfortunately, here in India, we do not have insurance for the outpatient department. So that's the reason doctors are still like extracting whatever they can from poor patients, and that's really painful. I've seen poor patients selling their belongings to finance the cost of many cost of patients, because those are very inelastic demand.
I think, sir, India need to be more developed to develop the service sector. সার্ভিস সেক্টর ইন্ডিয়াতে তত ডেভেলপড নয়, যে মানে এই যে ইনশোর হচ্ছে সবার যে ইন্স্যুরেন্স আছে, এটা তো ইন্ডিয়া তো এখনো ডেভেলপ দ্যাট মাচ ডেভেলপড।
No, actually service sector is very which is very unlikely in the Indian case. Usually the stages of developments are that first you have a very reasonable agricultural sector, and then the secondary sector, industry, and then the tertiary or service sector. But what happened in India, we have a very large and in the agricultural sector, industry almost non-existent, and we have a very high service sector, and mostly driven by the software industries.
Hmm.
But yes, you are right. So far as the insurances are concerned, they are not universal till date. One way of doing things, this I think this Pradhan Mantri Ayush Yojana or something like that. I forgot the name. There are many schemes by chief ministers, prime minister, and the people. We are actually confused and we are scapegoats. We
So
do not
there
get
is also corruption. We all know,
everywhere. Corruption.
everywhere.
That's the reason I am doing research on corruption for quite some time now. So this Pradhan Mantri Ayushman Yojana, something like that. I'm forgetting Mukhyamantri something Yojana before this election came. They gave some this cards parts. I don't know whether those worked or not. But that fetched
Shastro
vote. That,
Shati.
right. Something Shati. So everything is
Shastro
Shati.
Shati. Yes, sir. Shastro
In
Shati.
Bengali, in Bengal everything is either Shati or Sri.
Sri, yes.
That fetched vote, I did not know. I don't know that whether that they fetched any welfare or not. But that's not the point of discussion here tonight. So let's continue with what we are saying. So currency in circulation, as Bhimatriji was talking about, is indeed an indicator, and that's the reason I gave you an example of why doctors are not allowed to take fees in terms of currencies in OECDs. Now, if you kind of think this study of informality, how do you study this informality? What is the trade-off that drives this informality? One is public finance, which is taxation versus public service, and there is labor market, labor cost vis-a-vis the capital cost. These are the reasons we still have a kind of a conflict between a huge unregulated unproductive informal sector and very developed, with brevity I say, a formal sector in India. Now you see a very interesting correlation in front of you. Informality and regulation. The more regulation you have, you expect more informality. Can you tell me why? How do we justify this curvature of this fit? In Bengali, there is a saying. If some of you understand Bengali, I could see some Bengali students here. In Bengali, there is a saying that Bajro Atuni Foskai Gero. I don't know the English of it. If someone can translate it for me, it will be good. So if you have very
actually,
stringent,
sir, more stringent rules will actually make a field for informal transaction to somehow go for some sort of corruption or like that.
Right.
Out market.
So what it means that if you have a very stringent regulation, you see on the horizontal axis, you are regulating it on the index of 3, 4, 5, 6, and the more regulation you have, you see the more informality going up, because by definition, informal sector are non-tax paying, unregistered company. They want to, avoid restrictions. Okay, I don't think I'll be able to finish it what I want to. So, Dayashankar, let me finish it here, okay? Because you have another session coming up. So, we have 5 minutes. If there are any questions, I could take this, or else I call it a day, okay?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so it's last final 5 minutes for any discussion if you want to have. So I'd be happy to take part in the discussion, or else I'll call it a day. Any question by anyone, any clarity, lack of clarity, any confusion, any query sort, you can tell me. It's 2 and this is the first time actually I'm speaking almost continuously for 2.5 hours. It could have been easier if I could see all the students in front of me, because then I could know that whether I was able to generate interest or not. Now that you are all icons, I have to leave it with my wild guess that at least it benefits some of you. At least it generated some sort of value to some of you, or else It's
Yes, sir,
absolutely
definitely.
it would be a futile exercise. Okay. Thank you, Sujata. I think
I
Himadri
expect
Jato.
more classes from you, sir, if it
Yes, sir.
possible.
The way you have
Daya Shankar
explained-
did not allow us me to have more, and also since he does not pay me, I will not take any more class other than these 2.5 hours of grueling session with you. Anyways, jokes apart, I'm thankful to all of you, and also Daya Shankar and Devashish Da for giving me this opportunity to interact with you. It's a nice stuff to have you